It's divisional week in the NFL. A lot of good divisional matchups. One of them, well, hopefully it's at least okay, better than the first time around, as the Green Bay Packers play host to the 1-5 Minnesota Vikings. We're an hour away from kickoff, so we here at Game On Wisconsin are going to lead you right up to it with some goofy analysis and whatever the hell else happens. Jacob, let's do it.
We 19. We 19. Rex! Yeah. We 19! Can't. Oscar! Turbo to the... Give me east right flop. B right all the way outside. Y left. Fake 396 bag. B hand. B puck. Is that long enough for you? 319. Check New York Bozo. New York Bozo.
Well, hello to you and yours. Happy Sunday. It's game day, baby. I picked up a nice souvenir last week, this trek around. So we're hoping to, get some purple hydration liquid in our water bottles later. I'm Alex Strofe. I'm your host here, the pre-snap on Game On Wisconsin. Joining me, two doofs, as they always do. To my left is, I guess rather to your right, is Jacob Westendorf, the owner of Game On Wisconsin. Hello, Jacob. How are you?
Good to be here, friends. It's game day. It's a divisional matchup. It's snowing, is my understanding, outside of Lambeau Field.
Yeah.
So that's always cool. The first snow, and winter is here in Green Bay, as Aaron Rodgers said last year after a win against the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, I was outside, I don't know, about a half an hour ago, and I almost turned into Dorothy from Wizard of Oz, and I almost joined her in that alternate dimension because I felt like I was going to get picked up and taken away, given how damn windy it is. But
You
Jimmy
need to eat some more
Christensen,
cheese curds, man.
yeah, I do need to. I need to bulk up. I mean, winter is here. You're not wrong. Jimmy Christensen with us as well. Hi, Jimmy. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's game day morning. It's a divisional matchup. It's a 1-5 opponent, so that's always a thumbs up for me. But what do you say, boys? Let's jump into this. Let's try to break this down as the Packers and the Vikings match up from Lambeau Field here in about an hour. Let's jump into some key actives and inactives first. Let's start on the inactive side of things. Looking a lot like last week in this regard. David Bakhtiari, Aaron Jones, Kevin King, all inactive for the Packers today. And Jimmy, I guess we'll start with you and Aaron Jones missing the second straight week. Jamal Williams obviously able to pick up some slack last week in his absence, but Aaron Jones not being in the game, obviously, and Bakhtiari as well, obviously changing things up on the offense quite a bit.
Yeah, I think a big part of it, too, is because we have a short week after this game. So I think they're just being extra precautious because we do head to San Francisco on Thursday to face the 49ers. And that, at the end of the day, I'd much rather be at full strength against that team just because I hate them and they're a better team than a 1-5 Vikings team whose defense is really depleted right now to where they don't have Hunter. They don't have Yannick. So Bakhtiari, and last week, Billy Turner played really well at left tackle. So Bakhtiari, I'd rather have him take these days and get healthy. Jones, I'm a Jamal Williams stan, so I think having Williams in there, we're just gonna do just as well. And King and the GOAT, oh yeah, Big B. And with King, like, it sucks. This is the one that I think is gonna hurt the most, especially with Jefferson playing so well. But it's a big day for Josh Jackson, man. That's what I'm excited to see, how Josh Jackson steps up, because I think that's gonna determine a lot of offseason moves.
We'll get to Josh Jackson here in a minute because I've got some issues to air out. But Jacob, yeah, obviously these three big inactives, break it down for us.
Yeah, I mean, David Bakhtiari, if there's a set of teams you want to be missing your left tackle against, I guess it's the two the Packers have played the last 2 weeks. I got into a minor argument. I don't want to call it an argument, more of a dispute on the tweet machine, the app this past week, just talking about how people saw the Ronnie Stanley extension and asked immediately, can the Packers afford David Bakhtiari? First of all, the answer is yes, they can. And the other one is, do they need to afford David Bakhtiari given how well the offensive line played without him? And again, the answer is yes. They've played 6 quarters without David Bakhtiari. 2 of them were an abject disaster in Tampa Bay. The other 4 were against an anemic pass rush, that is the Houston Texans. This week, they play the Minnesota Vikings, who, like Jimmy mentioned, there's not a lot there. Yannick Ngakoue, not there. Danielle Hunter, not there. They have a guy whose name I'm not going to even try and butcher, but he's got a really long, who's done well for them this year, but not a lot in terms of pass rush. There just hasn't been a whole lot. And Mike Zimmer, I give him a ton of credit from a standpoint. There's a lot of people wondering whether he's lost it, quote unquote, in terms of his scheme ability. This is what I talk about all the time is you can scheme everything to death and you can have this perfect scheme drawn up. It still comes down to the players making plays. And the Vikings, they don't have enough players that can make plays. So the Packers, Billy Turner, that's cool that he'll play left tackle today, I think. And hopefully Bakhtiari is ready for San Francisco because that pass rush can wrap it up. And so can some of the ones they're going to face down the stretch. But you want Bakhtiari ready for those teams. The same goes for Jones. And Kevin King so much, I mean, how big of a difference has there been between Kevin King and Josh Jackson? So far this season, overall, when the two guys play at their best from their NFL careers, yes, Kevin King has been a better player than Josh Jackson has. This season specifically, what's the difference been? Has it been large? I don't know. That's a good question and one that Josh Jackson can certainly answer. Can you figure out a way to get Jackson to the point where you're comfortable enough? Jimmy was talking about maybe 2021 and beyond. I don't think that Josh Jackson can win the starting job moving forward for the rest of this season and Kevin King becomes a bench player. However, I do think Jackson can inspire some confidence that this team is okay going into with him as a stopgap type of corner going into 2021. He's had some good moments and he's had some rough ones, but I think it's been more good than bad through the first 2 weeks where he's been a starter through these last 2 games.
Interesting. I don't know. You bring up if there's a big gap. I don't know if it's huge, but I would argue it's definitely a significant downgrade from King to Jackson, right? Am I crazy in that analysis?
I don't know about crazy, but I don't know if I would agree that there's a significant it's a downgrade. I would say that. Yeah. I think Kevin King is put it this way. Right now, I would say it's fair to say Kevin King is average to above average, whereas Jackson has been average to below average. How significant is that gap? Well, if King is above average and Jackson's below average, then yeah, that's a pretty big gap. How often are they that big of a chasm? I don't know.
Good word choice. Yeah.
That's my tryout for Locked On Packers there. I've got that vocabulary that Bukowski's got, who I'm convinced sits here with a thesaurus during the show, but he's got to, man. That's my guy though. I can't give him too much flack for that. He gets enough of that for some other places. So I'll let them do that. Anyways. Yeah, I don't know how big of a difference there is. I think there's a difference. You can tell, obviously, one's a starter and one's not for a reason, right? Yep. But I mean, King is a nice matchup player. He's a good player. You know, the thing about him, he gets a bad rap. Both players get a bad rap because they're compared to Jair Alexander. And I think a lot of fans immediately assume Jair Alexander is what a good corner looks like. No, that's what an elite shutdown best corner in football looks like. Kevin King last season, for example, was a good cornerback. And I think that that's okay to say. Now, he was inconsistent at times. He gave up some plays, but he also made some. Josh Jackson has been an average corner through this part of the season. If you want to watch bad, the Packers have plenty of examples in recent memory to know what bad cornerback play looks like. So you can look to those if you want to look what bad looks like. But Kevin King also has the who he's not and who was drafted in that same draft class as to why he's not necessarily looked at the same way.
Yeah. My big thing with King, obviously he has some inconsistent moments, but like you said, that's every corner unless your name's Jair Alexander. But my big thing is availability. Last season he played his most games and he appeared in 15 of them. So this season again, he's already missing his 3rd game. So it's just, that's my big thing. It's just it seems like he's always hurt. And for someone that you want to have as your 1-2 combo with Alexander, you can't have him constantly missing games like this. And I know obviously he's not trying to get injured or looking for this, but it's just going into a contract year. This is, I think, the worst thing that could have happened to King.
Well, the question that you have then is, what does that do in terms of his contract, right? Because then do the Packers have an opportunity to essentially do, I don't call them prove it deals, because I in this case, I would call it a kick the can type of deal. Can they kick the can down the road and have King in as a 1-year stopgap and bring him back for 1 year? If he gets injured, you still have Josh Jackson and Kadar Hallman and some of the guys, and you essentially have the same situation at cornerback you had this year. If you could get him for 1 year and relatively decent money, and you draft his replacement somewhat early in the draft, although the Packers may or may not have a second round pick coming in this upcoming draft. So just tossing that one in there for that. But you never know. I mean, if the Packers can get a corner and start developing him, because here's the thing, rookies don't play in Green Bay. That's, I think, been made abundantly clear through the only rookie that played this season so far. Well, Kamal Martin a little bit, but Josiah DeGuara is the only one. And the only preferred day one starter in the Brian Gutekunst era is Darnell Savage. That's it. So rookies do not play typically in Green Bay. Usually they have some veteran, or now granted, some guys have taken over. Jair Alexander has stepped in early, guys like that, Elton Jenkins. But from day one, it's not like they drafted a guy and said, this is our starter day one. So they don't do that very often.
Mm-hmm. Which I love. I love to see the development and kind of long-term plans for these players, but it's so weird to see the reactions of just the fan base on just, it's like such a instant gratification where I want them starting right now rather of, if we develop them, they can come in and maybe do a little bit better and avoid some of these overreaction Mondays we have all the time where people just crap on these players for no reason because they're young.
It's the same fan base that complained under Ted Thompson that we relied too much on rookies and undrafted rookies and everything. They never had time to develop because they had to play right away, right? So I think there's a middle ground. Obviously, I personally don't love that this team, for example, and not to get all the way into this draft rabbit hole, I don't love that this team has basically zero contribution from its first and second round pick. However, I do like that, Rashawn Gary had some time to develop. Elton Jenkins had some time to develop. They didn't have to come in right away and have the weight of, you're our starting pass rusher opposite Zadarius Smith, and you have to be good right now. They have some time to do those things. So in general, I agree with the philosophy. I just wish it was a little less stringent.
Yeah.
Well, really looking forward to seeing Jordan Love and AJ Dillon today. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, it's all a fair point, but it has worked out, I guess, in the past few years. Of course, Savage being the one exception to that rule. But speaking of Darnell Savage, he's back in action today. He is active, as is Mason Crosby. So the Packers will have a kicker. That's always a thumbs up. And Tyler Ervin as well will be back in action for the Packers, opening some things up for that offense. I want to bring in a comment that producer Kyle chimed in there on the YouTube chat. He said, wind has already been an issue in pregame warmups for Crosby. Lots of going forward on 4th and 2-point conversions today. And we've talked about the wind earlier, and we know it's going to affect this game. Do you think that analysis is fair? Do you think it's going to be a 2-point and 4th down conversion fest, or do you think it'll be strategy as normal?
All gas, no brakes. So I think maybe not for the 2-point conversion. I think extra points, they'll try to play it as normal until they can't. But I think that with Crosby being injured, I kind of wondered if they were going to say, like, my range is within kind of like bad college kickers. It's within 40 yards or something like that, something to that effect. But with Crosby being injured, and now you add in that the wind is, according to producer Kyle, who's a real fan for knowing what the weather is outside of Lambeau Field, a disaster. Appreciate that, Kyle. Thank you very much. I don't know what Mason Crosby is going to be able to do on that. And I think that, you could see it to the point where kickoffs and short fields, this could be a game that's played like between the 30s, and the team that scores touchdowns and is able to punch it in and convert on those 4th downs and stuff. I think this actually plays into Green Bay's favor because you can see teams that have offensive minded head coaches typically are a little more aggressive on 4th downs and willing to go for it and those kinds of things. Whereas defensive minded head coaches, just by nature, are a little more conservative on offense and more apt to trust their defense. Mike Zimmer, defensive-minded head coach. He was aggressive once, for example, against Seattle and tried to win the game that way. But he might be apt to be a little more conservative and try and punt and play the field position game that way. I think that helps Green Bay from the standpoint of, Matt LaFleur might say, nope, it's my offense, it's my team. We can gain the 3 yards that we need to go get first down. So I like the idea. I like the idea of Aaron Rodgers still being able to zip the ball in the wind. Usually with the elements like this, it doesn't favor any passing game really in general, but it does favor the strong arm quarterback with the tighter spiral, which that's Aaron Rodgers. That's not Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. I think it's going to be business as usual, especially with the extra points early in the game. I think for the 4th down conversion, that's kind of been the game plan so far this season. We've seen Matt LaFleur get a lot more aggressive on 4th down. So I think it's just going to be, maybe he'll do a few more than he wouldn't have last week, but I think it's just when he when he's in the area that he's comfortable going with fourth downs, he's going to do that anyways. I don't know. I'm really hoping that we see a fake punt. I always want the Packers to do a fake punt, and I hope today's the day. I know
You're one of those.
I like theatrics, Jacob. I like theatrics. No,
Here's
I just want a fake
We
punt
can
once.
create. You can create a similar legend to that of Tom Crabtree through the fake punt.
I have a better idea. How about you, if it's 4th and 5, instead of faking a punt, how about you put the ball in the hands of your MVP quarterback?
So silly. I don't know why you think that. That's a
Right,
silly.
I don't know.
agree.
Okay.
That logic
Oh,
is
okay. So
nonsense.
I'm working with Sean Payton, and you guys want to give the ball to Taysom Hill all the time. It all makes sense. You guys are the reason for that crap.
Yeah, we are the Packers fans on Twitter just tweeting that we wish we would still have Taysom Hill. That's just me and Jimmy on multiple burners.
Yeah, I have so many burner accounts just saying like, Taysom, we need him.
Anytime Jacob has a troll in his mentions, it's either me or Jimmy in our burners. I mean, I don't know. Let's look at the Vikings offense quick, guys. Kirk Cousins has been, well, rather this year. 1,400, just under 1,500 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions on the year. The Vikings 1-5, as mentioned, look like maybe they're making a case for that kid out of Clemson named Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I don't know what the heck their thought process is, but Kirk Cousins has not been playing like the very well-paid quarterback he is this year, Jacob.
No, and it's why I watched him in Washington, and I thought, he's okay. He's capable of some really good moments. He's capable.
You
of
like
putting up
that?
You like that? Ooh-wee, all that stupid stuff he did when he was in Washington. He's just so corny. Like, he's not Russell Wilson corny, but he's corny, and it's weird. And I can't picture a team liking that, but maybe they do. I don't know. But when he was in Washington, he's able to put up a lot of numbers in garbage time. He's capable of having some good games against some not good teams. But whenever it seems like there's some pressure on and you need the quarterback to be the team that rises up and makes the play, he's not capable of doing it. And now this is a team that's needed its quarterback to cover up some of its flaws. Now, when Minnesota brought him in, I somewhat understood the idea that they thought he was the final piece. They had this elite defense, Thielen and Diggs. They had Dalvin Cook. They had a really good running game. Not a great offensive line, but I mean, they were good enough to get to the NFC Championship game the year prior. They thought he could be the final piece. He hasn't been that. They haven't been good since then. They've won one playoff game with Kirk Cousins. They went to New Orleans, which I mentioned yesterday on Pulse of the Pack, which was pretty funny. I did actually end up kind of enjoying that in a weird, strange way, just because I don't really care for New Orleans all that much either. But he hasn't been great, and that contract looks worse and worse the further apart we get from it. And they just gave him an extension. So it's not like, even if they are in position to draft someone like T-Law or Justin Fields or Trey Lance, those guys are not going to start next season because they're paying Kirk. They're not paying a $31 million backup. I can't picture them doing that. So there's really two options. They sit that early round pick like that, or the worst option is they pass on him and try and build around Kirk Cousins again. But with Rick Spielman on the helm, he's tried to claw this Kirk Cousins window open as long as he could. And it's been obvious to me, at least, for 2 seasons that this team is not good enough to win a Super Bowl. And they've continued as that defense has begun to age. They're trying to retool it now. And a lot of that blame is starting to focus on Mike Zimmer. And again, I think unfairly, because as I mentioned, this Vikings defense is still, from a statistical standpoint, not that terrible. And they've done as well as I think they possibly can do, considering the fact that they don't have any players on that. Not any, I shouldn't say that, but they don't have a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball. They have 2 good safeties, a good linebacker left in Eric Kendricks, and that's about it. Everything else is just in shambles right now. And Kirk Cousins, elite quarterbacks mask those flaws. We've seen Aaron Rodgers do it here for years. Mask the flaws that the Packers have had on the defensive side of the ball, maybe some of the shortcomings this year in the weaponry. It just hasn't been there, and Kirk's not that guy, and he's never going to be that guy, and they paid him to be that guy, and he's not. And this is what happens when you pay an average quarterback to be an elite player. And that's kind of why you've seen in Dallas maybe some of the reluctance with Dak Prescott. And I don't know if, I mean, granted, I don't know if I agree with Dallas's assessment necessarily, but they didn't want to do the same sort of thing with Dak Prescott that the Vikings did with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I'm honestly confused on how his production dropped so low, though, or just compared to other seasons. I know he's never been super consistent, but they got rid of Diggs. But Justin Jefferson, after the first couple weeks, has been playing at a ridiculously high level for especially a rookie wide receiver coming in. And he's made an impact. They still have Thielen there. Dalvin Cook is still an amazing running back. They put some investments in that offensive line. I know it's still not the best one. That's always where they seem to struggle. But I think the big thing, and you hit on it a lot, is a lot of these mistakes Cousins would do because he's inevitably going to make a few mistakes. Their defense usually could kind of pick up the slack, and you hit on it. They're not playing terribly, but it's not the same Vikings defense we've seen in the past. And again, they've been hit with the injury bug, and trading for Yannick, then trading him away. It's just that defense not there to pick up the slack. And like you said, Cousins isn't the quarterback he's not a superstar quarterback that's going to overcome those kind of things. And he reminds me of someone kind of like Peyton Manning at the end of his career needed a ridiculous defense to get to that Super Bowl. That's what Cousins need. He needs
a hell of a comparison for Kirk Cousins.
No, he's not Peyton Manning. He needs a defense like Peyton Manning had, is what I'm saying, to do well.
Peyton Manning is like the greatest quarterback that's ever existed.
Yeah, how about a better comparison? How about like a later day Carson Palmer in Arizona?
Okay, he's like Jimmy Garoppolo. He needs a really good defense. Is that better?
That's a lot better than Peyton Manning. Yeah.
I don't like talking about the 49ers, so I had to go with the one that popped in my head right
now. Not only does Jimmy G need that defense, he needs Kyle Shanahan calling plays. He needs everything to be perfect around him. That's a great example.
Thank you.
Yeah. Something else you mentioned that I did want to talk about too, because I've made fun of it too, but the Yannick Ngakoue trade and then subsequent trade away, I will say this, I do give Rick Spielman some, not a ton, but some credit for seeing that move's not going to work and getting something for Ngakoue instead of just trying to be stubborn and make that work. So they trade him away. Yeah, it doesn't look great because you traded back. You get what's going to be a late 3rd round pick because the Ravens are going to be a deep run playoff kind of team and the Vikings are not going to be very good. But at least they had the foresight, to do that after you realize your team is not going to be what you wanted it to be. And to be honest, they did have a little run of bad luck on that too. You mentioned that when they make the trade, you're hoping Ngakoue can play with Danielle Hunter, and Hunter hasn't played a snap this season, and he won't because he's had neck surgery. He's out for the season. So I do give Spielman some credit, not a ton, because honestly, making that deal was not a great thing anyways in the first place, but to have the foresight to be like, this isn't working, very similar to, now I'm going to make this terrible comparison, but there we go. Ron Wolf, when he hired Ray Rhodes, having the gumption to realize he made a mistake after 1 year and to fire him within that 1 year. Now, granted, the problem after that was they hired Mike Sherman and compounded bad coaching hires back to back. But that's all beside the point. But I do give him a little bit of credit, at least from that standpoint.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I guess the question I have, and I don't like putting negative stuff onto players, but do you think there was some part of Ngakoue that was, I know in Jacksonville, he kind of forced his way out. Do you think there's some stuff behind the scenes of him saying like, look, guys, I want to be on a winning team. This isn't going to work out here. Get me out of here.
Well, I'm sure that there had to be some player demand there, right? I mean, there's no way they're just going to flip him 8 weeks after they trade for him for no reason. I imagine, he expected to win in Minnesota. I think most people expected Minnesota to be at least a 500 team this year, and they've just been really freaking bad. I mean, it's simply put as that. So I think, yes, there has to be some I guess uncomfortability or I guess I don't know what the word I'm looking for Yannick Ngakoue. So I imagine disappointment for sure. And I think, he had to at least have some sort of say in getting out of there and getting traded to Baltimore. And that's a winning team. That's a better purple team to be on if you want to win.
The best organization top to bottom in the NFL is the Baltimore Ravens. Organization, ownership, general manager, head coach, quarterback, all the way down. The best organization. Their roster, top to bottom, might be the best one too. And that is with all due respect to the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously, they have the best quarterback. They have arguably the best coach other than Belichick, all that stuff. But Baltimore is maybe the strongest identity of everything. When they pick a player, you're like, of course, he just reeks of Baltimore Raven. Right. Reeks of Baltimore Raven. So it makes perfect sense.
And Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen was one of those guys, at least in my opinion.
J.K. Dobbins, Devin Duvernay, like everybody they drafted was that way. It's something I remember when the Packers were interviewing general manager candidates after Ted Thompson was demoted by promotion. And that's what I'm calling it. Sorry.
I like it.
But one of the guys they requested to interview was Eric DaCosta, which at the time was the heir apparent to Ozzie Newsome, because Ozzie Newsome was the general manager at the time. And that was the guy I wanted. I wanted somebody from outside of Green Bay, and I loved the Baltimore connection. And I thought for sure something like that. As people were throwing around names like Brian Gutekunst and Elliott Wolf and some of the internal candidates, That's the guy I wanted. I wanted somebody outside of Green Bay, and he's proven. I'm not going to say he's proven me right, but I mean, he's proven pretty well out of that. Not to say Brian Gutekunst hasn't, obviously. The Packers have had 2 really good seasons with him at the helm, and the first one that they had with him at the helm is kind of a wash, right? Because they fire the head coach, they overturn the entire roster, all that stuff. So of course they had a rough season that first year. That usually is the case if you don't have a strong base in place like they did under Ted. So it's unfortunate that it worked out that way, but yeah, the Ravens are fantastic. I don't have much more to say.
They are indeed. So I'm gonna derail us now. Just coming from Twitter from Bill Huber is a video of Mason Crosby kicking a 47-yard field goal in warmups this morning. Let's take a look at what happened.
Yeah, not even close.
These field goals and extra points are going to be quite interesting today. If you've got either of those kickers, I know we're no longer on the Game on Fantasy show, but if you've got either of those kickers in your fantasy lineup, I'll just say be careful.
Thanks to Matt for throwing that to us too. That was a nice little tip for us in there. So you are officially hired and now let go as a producer. We have to lay you off, unfortunately. We only have room on the We have room on the payroll for 2.5 producers, and Kyle and Nick are the 2, and Alex is the half as the one for Jamal Williams. So we only have 2.5 there. But I think that you've seen it there, right? The thought is going to be, I think they'll do business as usual for extra points until they miss one, and then it's going to be interesting to see how the decision making goes from there. If the wind is blowing a certain way, I'd like to see, I don't know if they had one of him kicking a different direction too, if it's any different that way, but I would imagine the wind is going to be interesting. I think yards after the catch is going to be a big thing today, which thankfully for the Packers, they have Devontae Adams to do stuff like that. And I think the running game and broken tackles, and this is where they might miss Aaron Jones a little bit, just because that isn't necessarily Jamal Williams' strongest point. That's going to be push the pile type stuff, very similar with A.J. Dillon. But I do think you're going to see stuff where Dillon and more so Jamal Williams and Swerve and Irvin's back. We kind of mentioned that could be a little big deal where these guys are making dudes miss in the open field and turning 5-yard plays into 25-yard plays and stuff like that. That's stuff I think the Packers are going to need to do. And really, really on defense at this point, I think you almost have to load the box and do what you haven't done. Load the box and try to stop Dalvin Cook that way. Mm-hmm. Leave your corners on an island, trust the wind, and trust your corners to make plays that way.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Jacob. And while you bring that up, I want to bring something up on the Packers offense, because it seems every week this year, right, there's been one player that has stuck out like a sore thumb in terms of successes in whatever individual game. Of course, the first matchup with the Vikings back in week 1 was Devontae Adams' first huge game this season, 156 yards, a pair of touchdowns on 14 catches. Huge game for Devontae Adams when they played the Vikings last time. So I got to ask it, and I've got a few names that come to mind as well, but I'll throw it to you guys first. Who do you think will step up for this Packers offense and have a big game? I'm not just talking, a 40-yard contribution from Tyler Ervin. I'm talking, who is the guy outside of Devontae Adams on this offense that could really take over the game?
Well, one of my favorite pre-draft discussions I ever read was about a BYU running back named Jamal Williams when he was coming out into the draft. And it said he was a chainsaw with legs when he runs. And I love that description. And the first time you really saw that, and you guys probably don't remember this game because it was a Brett Hundley game, and we're all still trying to painfully forget the memories of Brett Hundley, but it was in Chicago, and Jamal Williams had Aaron Jones got hurt that day. Jamal Williams had a really nice game that day and clinched the game with it ended up being 2 runs, but he just ran through dudes because he really looked like a chainsaw with legs. And I think this is the kind of game that bodes really well for him. And I know people love and want to see A.J. Dillon. And I just mentioned wanting to see the 2nd round pick and the 1st round pick, even though that is Jordan Love. So I don't really want to see him contribute, but you'd like to see those top picks contribute. Jamal Williams is a better player at this stage of his career, and he's better in the running game. He's better in the passing game. And this game bodes very well for him. I think this could be a game where he gets the ball 25 times on the ground, catches a few passes, makes some plays in the screen game. This could be a day where he gets 30 touches and scores a couple of touchdowns. I mean, I look forward to a huge game for number 30, the chainsaw with legs running against not a great Minnesota defense. That's not Pat and Kevin Williams on the other side of the ball. So I think Green Bay's interior can block up that middle of the Vikings defense and block up those linebackers, and let's party and let's pound the rock.
Wow, Jacob had an opportunity to talk about Jamal Williams and he took it. Shocker. All right, Jimmy, who are you thinking?
Well, to go on that really quick, this game's going to be great for him too because, like you said, he likes to run through people. His Marshawn Lynch quote he likes. I won't say it, Jacob. So I think especially too since it's cold in Green Bay, it's not as cold as it's going to get, but just constantly having Jamal hit you and that's one thing I love about him is when he gets hit, he's and he always falls forward. He's not going to get hit and fall backwards. So he's going to get hit. He's going to drive you forward. I'm really excited for him. I think he's going to have a big game. And I think Swerve and Irvin being back just with that jet motion, I know we did that even without him, but he's just a different threat. He's the most dynamic person we have for that type of role. So having him back is going to hesitate those linebackers just even a little bit more to open it up for Jamal, who also mentioned he's trying to get a little more elusive, but I think he's going to go back to his roots on just running through people.
Mouth, yeah.
Yeah. But for me, I'm going to go. I think it's going to be a Tunyon game today. I think we have they're going to really try to shut down Davante Adams because he torched them week 1. He had a huge game last week. That's going to be a huge focus for them to stop Davante. Jamal is going to be a threat. And I think after a little bit, I think he's going to be the big one for them to start focusing on, and then it leaves someone to kind of sneak out and have another productive game like he had in the past. So I think it's going to be Tunyon's time. I think I'm going to go with at least 1 touchdown, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has 2 and a close to 100 yards.
Gotta love the tight end pick and Funyuns Tunyon, man. He's had himself quite a breakout season.
I just want to throw this out here, by the way. Last week, Jay Sternberger did have a touchdown after you kind of rolled your eyes at me. Alex, he did.
That's a very fair point. Yeah, I did. I'm not a Sternberger enthusiast yet. I just don't understand the hype, but I like it. Of course, if Packers are scoring touchdowns, I'm not complaining at the end of the day. So all good here. But receiving core is interesting, as Jimmy brought up, right? The main focus for Minnesota today has to be Davante Adams. We saw the week he had a week ago. We saw the week he had against Minnesota in week 1. They know what he's capable of, and they don't want to have a repeat of week 1 where the Packers put up 43 points pretty nonchalantly. And again, Davante Adams had 14 catches and 150-plus yards and 2 touchdowns. So you don't want to repeat that, even though we do know history repeats itself. The Vikings aren't going to let that happen. So when you look at guys,
just throwing this out there, they knew that week 1, and he still did it. So again, that's the thing. They can scheme the hell out of it. It just doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because he's the best route runner in the NFL. So he can open things up unlike just about anybody else. Do we still think he has over 100 yards today?
I would say maybe not, just because I don't know what these conditions are going to do in terms of the passing game.
That's fair.
I could see this being a game where Rodgers throws the ball 20 times and has 150 yards passing total, just because the conditions are so crappy. Now, of course, as I say that, Rodgers is going to throw it 80 or 40 times and have 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, of course. But I just don't know what the conditions level are going to play. But if a receiver is going to have 100 yards receiving today, it's 17.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Jimmy, what do you think? This could either be, is it a boom or bust game? How are you viewing this? Obviously, the weather does play an interesting role.
Yeah, I could see him having a lot of receptions today, but like Jacob said, I think with the conditions, it might just a lot of short passes. So I think it could be where he has a lot of receptions, but he's not quite getting to that 100 yards just because you're not taking the shots down the field that you normally would in much better, less windy conditions. I took my dog because I have to be a fur dad right now with this dog because my wife took my daughter somewhere. So I took him for a walk this morning so he'd be tired during this. And dear God, I thought I was going to fall over a couple times because the wind even in Milwaukee's bad. So I was like, I was the whole time I was walking, I was like, how are we going to do it? How are we going to throw the ball? So I would not be surprised if he has receptions, but not as many yards.
Absolutely fair. Yeah, I imagine. I'm with you guys. I think it'll be somewhere, he'll still have a productive day. Rodgers will still look to him. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how Rodgers was forcing the ball to Davante Adams. So we imagine even in the crappiest of conditions, he's still going to feed 17 like he does any other week. Jacob, you hate that narrative, don't you?
It's so stupid. They give the ball to their best player. Oh no. Are they forcing runs to Aaron Jones too?
You can make the case.
It's just no, he's not forcing the ball to Davante Adams. It's one of those things that's come stuck in your head. It's like a go-to line that we go to when the offense doesn't go as well. Maybe Tampa Bay is just really good on defense and the Packers just had a really rough day. Is that not possible? It's stupid. Stop saying things like that. Not only that, you have no proof. Like it's one of those. I don't think you have to watch the all 22 from start to finish and break down every play like Ben Fennell does. But watching the broadcast tape, you can't tell me he's forcing the ball to 17 and say in the same breath, nobody else is open, because you can't possibly see those things. It's not possible. It drives me up the wall.
So we're talking about receivers a little bit right now. So who do you think, besides Devontae, what wide receiver, so you can't pick a tight end, has the most receiving yards?
Oh,
next week, Will Fuller.
Yeah, next week.
Today.
Oh,
geez. Well, last week the answer was what? Malik Taylor, and the number of yards was like That's 6, correct. Right?
Yeah.
Christ. Let's go Equanimous St. Brown. I think they can hit him on like one of those wide receiver screen type plays that hits into. I mean, listen, we're going to the darkest of dark horses on stuff like this, right? Because MVS has not really done much since week 2, and they just don't have a whole heck of a lot. I mean, it's kind of a throwing a dart, right? And hoping to see what you can get. So yeah, I'll go with EQ.
All right. Ooh, yeah, and that's like my man crush on this team outside of Jair. So of course you took that one from me. I'll look at Malik Taylor this week after what he did a week ago, and was this touchdown last week or 2 weeks ago? I think it was last week, right?
It was last week, yeah.
Yeah, it was last
right
week.
Before halftime.
Yep. So he's coming off a touchdown week, his first career touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe Rodgers is finally to the point where he's like, yeah, that's my dude. That's another guy I trust on this offense. And, again, like Jacob said, and like we've been saying for the last 35 minutes, we have no idea how these conditions are going to factor into the offensive game plan for Green Bay. But I imagine you have Aaron Rodgers, you're still going to throw the football. And Malik Taylor is going to be a guy that's on the field and has the opportunity to make some plays. So I'll go with the other one. I'll go Malik Taylor. And, of course, Jimmy, if you want to jump on the MVS bandwagon, feel free.
I will. I'll go with MVS. Just he had a decent game. I know he had a couple drops against Minnesota week 1, but he also had a few big plays. So maybe he had a drop last week that people got on him about. Maybe this is a little bounce back moment, because usually when he hits a low and people get on him, he has a game where he gets our hopes up again. So maybe this is his time to revitalize that, and then he'll take a crap again the other week. Who knows?
This is his last chance, right? Because this is the last game the Packers will have without Will Fuller as a member of the Packers, right?
Yeah, that's
no, man, I think they're going to sign Terrell Pryor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Kelvin Benjamin.
Yeah, maybe Kelvin Benjamin.
But seriously, we might as well bring it up as we've got a few minutes, guys. The trade deadline is on Tuesday. It's 2 days away. Brian Gutekunst has never been a stranger to making moves. It's not like he will make one, but he's not afraid to, as we've seen in past years. What do you think?
I'll say this. I think that, because I've talked about this quite a bit this week, as the Fuller rumors have kind of ramped up a little bit. Rap Sheet reported again this morning that this is interest that dates back to the summer. People say, oh, the Packers will never do it. They never do things like that. Well, I've said this a million times, and it's become a running joke with Jimmy's co-host, Mr. Todd Varney, and Mr. Sanjay Murthy, and Matt Jensen over at the Freezer podcast. It takes 2 to tango. So, why I say that is I point to the Khalil Mack trade. Brian Gutekunst offered both of his first-round picks reportedly for that season to get Khalil Mack. So much so that I will never forget, Devontae Adams tweeted, Chicago, but I thought, ... The Packers thought they were getting Khalil Mack. The Packers players, team, everybody thought they were getting Khalil Mack. That is an aggressive trade that Brian Gutekunst was in on. Brian Gutekunst has been in on all these other things. He will not overpay for someone he doesn't think is worth it. He wasn't going to give up a 3rd-round pick for Robbie Anderson, who they weren't planning to re-sign. He's not going to give up something ridiculous for a player that's not in their long-term plans. And maybe he's offering a 2nd-round pick for Houston for Will Fuller, and Houston wants a 1st. Would I trade a 1st-round pick for Will Fuller? No. Like, the list of players I would trade a 1st-round pick for is not very big. Yeah. And they only play certain positions, and wide receiver is not one of them. Like, players that have been reportedly on the trade block that I would trade a 1st-round pick for is like Stephon Gilmore, and that's it. So I think that Gutekunst is in on this. Deadline spur action. I don't think he's sitting on his hands. I just think it's a matter of, can they come to an agreement? But that being said, in terms of a value and something that fits this team and this offense to what exactly they need, I don't know if there's been a better fit for the wide receivers that the Packers have been linked to, other than Will Fuller, because Emmanuel Sanders doesn't fit quite the way they needed it to. Robbie Anderson, for what we thought he was, he's been different in Carolina, but from what we thought he wasn't necessarily that fit. Will Fuller is like a low end wide receiver 1. And if you go from, it's very possible the Packers go today from Devontae Adams and then Malik Taylor and MVS to Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard, and Will Fuller in 10 days. That is a significant upgrade to the passing game. So I'm not telling Gutekunst what to do. I trust him in terms to not overpay, but I do think that this is something that they should be looking very seriously at, and I would give something as high as their second-round pick.
So do you think this deal gets done? Do you think they make this deal? You sound like you're a believer, Jacob. You're more in on this than I thought you were going to be.
I do. I think that it's something where they've done it since they've talked about it since this summer.
Yeah.
Brian Gutekunst, when he's been in on something like this that aggressively, has gotten his man. Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Adrian Amos, Billy Turner. The only exception, I guess, is Khalil Mack. And that was because Oakland chose, and they thought Chicago was going to have a better set of draft picks. And it turns out, I'd have to do the math, I guess, but it turns out they were right. Oakland got better picks out of those deals than what they would have gotten from trading them with Green Bay. Because it would have been 12 and 30 from one season for Green Bay as opposed to like 2 seasons. I guess they got a 20 something and like I don't know. I mean, I guess you can look at it whatever way you want for that, but they thought Chicago, and I understand that bet because Aaron Rodgers with Khalil Mack is probably a better bet than Mitchell Trubisky with Khalil Mack. So I think it gets done. And I sincerely look forward to Tuesday at the deadline. If it doesn't get done combined with the election, Twitter should just be a lovely place if that happens.
Oh, Twitter's going to be really, really fun on Tuesday. It's going to be ridiculous. That might be the one day I sign off. Jimmy, that's a tough act to follow. What do you think?
Yeah, well, Jacob doesn't want to say it, but he was messaging us privately, and he was saying Odell Beckham, 2 first-rounders, get him to Green Bay.
I swear to God, Jimmy.
Yeah, you saw it, right?
Sure.
Yep.
I did see it. Yeah, that's true.
Jimmy just got fired. Did you guys see that? Did you guys see that? Jimmy just got fired. I am vehemently against Odell Beckham being a Green Bay Packer.
I am too. I just knew that'd get you.
No, he's all in. Let's not do that now. No.
I'm with Jacob. I think that's something. Well, it's obvious. It's been reported, but we're definitely in on it. With last year not wanting to give up a pick for Robbie Anderson, who wasn't in our long-term plans, makes me wonder with Will Fuller because he is in his final year of the contract. We do have so many free agents this offseason, so how high we're willing to go for someone that seems like he won't be in our long-term plans, but who knows with Goody? He's a mastermind. So
that's a question though. So we all agree, right? David Bakhtiari is number 1 in terms of priority free agents, right?
Yep.
Okay. Where would Will Fuller fall in behind everybody else?
I say
number 3, number 4.
Jimmy, who's number 2? Because I got a pretty good idea.
Corey Linsley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's not where I thought you were gonna
yeah, no, Jamal's 4th on that one. And I'm confident Jamal's coming back. I just think since I am so confident in that, I put him a little bit lower because I know he has a heart in Green Bay and I'll cry a lot of tears. I don't think he wants to see my ugly cry. So I think he'll come back just for that reason. But no, I would Corey Linsley.
I would put Fuller 2 just because he's a younger player, second contract. I think that he fits with Devontae. I think you could still probably get a Devontae extension done that way. If it costs you Allen Lazard as a potential second contract in the process, I love Allen Lazard. He's a replaceable player in that regard. Yep. So I just think that's interesting. Now we're getting all our hopes up for stuff like this for it to eventually not happen. Yeah. But like I said, I do think it happens. I think it's been reported. And I think that when Gutekunst has been aggressive and ready to pull the trigger, he's gotten his man more often than not.
Well, when the Packers don't trade for Will Fuller, everybody knows where to find Jacob at Jacob Westendorf on Twitter. Go verbally murder him. So on to the next order of business. We've got some game picks to make.
Yeah, we do.
Let's start with our locks of the week. How do we feel?
Oh boy, I wrote it down so long ago I forgot about it.
Yeah, me too. I gotta go find my notes. Yeah, I'm
going to take the Tennessee Titans over the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are starting 5 different offensive linemen today, and the Titans are really good.
That's a good one.
That's fair. I'm glad you didn't go for the Chiefs over the Jets. That's good. Jimmy, please don't either.
Why is that yours?
No, it's just too easy.
No, I'm going to do a riskier one.
Okay.
I'm looking at the 2, and 4 teams. I'm going with the Chargers as my lock over the Broncos.
Ooh.
Yeah. Risk it for the biscuit.
That's good. I like that.
Justin Herbert.
Yeah, Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to be the rookie of the year front runner at this point. He's been playing balls to the walls, as they say. But my lock this week will be I got to think about this. Let's go with the Los Angeles Rams over the Miami Dolphins. I think that's going to be a good football game. I just think the Rams will take it. Let's move to upsets. There's a couple good options this week for upsets. As you know, there's some teams that maybe you'd think would be favored and they're not. So we'll go same order. Jacob.
I'll take the Raiders over the Browns. I think the Browns might go through a minor adjustment period. I think the Raiders, even without Trent Brown, will be able to protect Derek Carr enough and get just enough points on the board to squeak by Cleveland. That's
a good one.
I like it.
I'm going to go with a divisional matchup. I know Buffalo's been playing really
Minnesota.
Well this year. Yeah. I'm going to go with New England over the Buffalo Bills. I think they're 2-4. They have to get a bounce back game. Bill Belichick is a mastermind, so I think he's going to pull something out and beat the Bills.
Yeah, that theory didn't work for me last week.
No, it didn't.
We'll see if it works better for me.
I will go to a different divisional matchup, and no, it's not the Vikings, Jacob. I'll save your breath on that one. I will go with, this is one of the surprising underdogs I was alluding to just a second ago. The undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers are underdogs against the Baltimore Ravens today. I think they stay undefeated. I'm going to go with the Steelers in an upset on the road at M&T Bank today. And, of course, our last order of business each week, and I know Jacob's just quivering to get to it because I know he's really scared to announce his pick of the Vikings. But it's the Packers, it's the Vikings. We need a score. Jacob, go ahead.
I'm not Nick Scheib, so I'm not picking the Vikings. My hat should be here any day now. This is not the new one that he had picked for me, but I look forward to that being here any day now. So thank you, Nick, for that. And I look forward to you betting against Packers several more times this season as well. So appreciate that. I like Green Bay. I had it 38-20 when I wasn't sure what the weather forecast was going to look like. So I'm going to drop that a little bit. I'm going to go 28-13. I still think Green Bay is going to be able to put up points. I think they'll be able to move the ball. Green Bay's defense has more playmakers. Their offense has more playmakers. I think they'll be able to slow down Dalvin Cook enough to be able to move the ball on offense, keep the Vikings offense off the field, keep their defense on the field, Minnesota's that is, and win the game and get ready for San Francisco.
I like it. I'm going to go. I was trying to do some math in my head with 2-point conversions and stuff to make a more accurate guess, but it's too hard. I'm going to go Packers. I'm going 35. I think they're just going to keep rolling on offense, and I just really hate the Vikings, so I hope we just destroy them. I'm going to go 35-13. Packers are going to steamroll them.
Okay, yeah, we're all going to be in the same boat, right? We think it's going to be a multiple possession game. I'm with you. But I think the wacky scores are going to prevail. Maybe we get some scoregami because I'm always cheering for that. I will say Packers 25, Vikings 16, 25-16. How's that? I don't think that's scoregami, but that's a fun score.
Sounds like one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be low scoring-ish. The weather will obviously play a little bit of a role, but I think most of us can agree we think the Packers will roll in this one. So good stuff, gents. Appreciate the time. How about some closing thoughts? What do you think? What do you think the X factor maybe, or anything that will play a big role in this game is off the top of your head?
I think the Vikings and the lack of ability to kind of dominate the line of scrimmage. And I know that's something I talk about all the time, but the team who wins the line of scrimmage more often than not is the team who wins the game. And especially true in a game like this one where the weather plays the factor. And I just don't know in the trenches where Minnesota is going to be able to win, whether it's their offense against our defense or our offense against their defense. I just don't know how much that matters or how much they're going to be able to do on either of those. Again, the path to victory I saw for Minnesota in this game was Dalvin Cook going nuts anyways, or Green Bay missing tackles on guys like Thielen and Jefferson on just some short passes. But overall, I think Green Bay is the better team. The weather could make this I call them stupid games or just something stupid like that, but I just can't picture anything like that happening.
Yeah. My big thing is this man right here is gonna add a couple million to his contract this offseason today. He's gonna have a big game. I'm gonna go around. He's gonna beat his total last week of 114 total yards.
Ooh.
He's gonna beat it today.
Hey, we're always cheering for our boy. And I actually agree with you, Jimmy. I think Jamal Williams' presence in this game will determine at least what kind of game it is in some capacity. I think you look at, obviously, the weather conditions we keep mentioning and have continued to mention this entire show. Jamal Williams is going to get the ball quite a bit. The ball is going to be in his hand with Aaron Jones out, and what he does with those carries and those touches will really determine what avenue the Packers offense takes in what we assume is an avenue to victory later today. So hopefully Jamal does top his total from last week, gets into the end zone, 6-7 times, nothing too crazy. And we can talk with him on or I guess we don't have him this Tuesday, but November
if he does that, we're making an audible and we'll do it.
We'll make it 10-15 minutes. Whatever. So that's Jacob Westendorf. That's Jimmy Christensen. I'm Alex Strofe. I'll be with you after the game here on the Game On Wisconsin socials, taking your call, breaking down the game, and doing all that good stuff. And maybe a couple of my friends here will stop by as well. So there we go. Yeah, Jamal dancing. It's Jamal game day, baby. We'll see you after the game.